right now what they have is practically nothing, so you can't question the decision to try and go for it. But as far as Seattle is concerned, they have the best quarterback. I mean, Russell Wilson has played the best of any quarterback in the NFC this year. Do they have enough around him to be a legit threat in the playoffs?
I don't think they do. It's as much of a magician as Russell Wilson, because he covers up a lot of flaws within that Seattle roster. I don't know if it's enough to overcome, New Orleans with their defense, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, or the San Francisco 49ers with, their defense and their rushing attack and how Jimmy Garoppolo has been playing. So, again, I'll never put anything against Russell Wilson, but boy, they have some holes on their team.
And you know who they're going to miss? They are going to miss Josh Gordon. I know it sounds because he wasn't killing the stats. Josh Gordon was still a 6'3", 220-pound human that you had to pay attention to. Go watch the Arizona game. They could not throw the football down the field. They couldn't even stretch the field vertically in the pass game. So to D. Wood's point, I think it's a lot to ask Russell Wilson to overcome.
All right, so those are the sort of the big contenders in the NFC, and then there's the division that someone has to win. Let's talk about the Eagles. Their postseason fate now finally in their hands after beating Dallas 17-9. A matchup with the Giants is all that stands between them and the NFC East title. A win over them or a Cowboys loss to Washington would lock up the playoffs for the Eagles. Let's take a look at the Eagles' FPI chances of winning the division. That's our analytics. They say Philly has a 73% chance to get in over Dallas. Dallas is still in play for the division crown. They need a win and a Philly loss to make the playoffs. And I have renamed the quarterback of the New York Giants for this week. He is no longer Danny Dimes. That's not telling the story. He's Danny Dollars.
Yes.
Dimes, not nearly enough. D. Wood, what do you see as we look at this thing? Oh, the delicious possibilities here. They both play in that 425 window, that NFC East battles. The Giants are playing pretty well of late. What chance do you give the Giants of spoiling the party against the banged-up Eagles?
Laura, I'm so glad I'm here today. I am so glad I'm here because if you thought I was going to completely jump off the Dallas bandwagon, no, you are mistaken right now. Listen, the way the Giants and the weapons that they have on offense, they can absolutely beat the Philadelphia Eagles. You're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles team. As great as Carson Wentz has played, this is still a depleted Philadelphia Eagles team. And you're going up against a New York Giants team with Danny Dollars out there, Saquon Barkley dropping dimes on people out there. This is a team that have nothing. They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Nothing. Those are the scariest teams to play, especially the last game when everything is decided. I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys this morning.
You're going to take the Cowboys to win the division.
I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys.
Obviously I'm taking the Eagles.
We know you're taking the Eagles.
Going on the road will be difficult, but I'm hoping they get Lane Johnson back. And I'll say the same thing I said last week. I don't think that the coach and the quarterback are going to let them lose this game. I think that they're uber confident in themselves and the people around them. The defensive line for the Eagles has got to come into play because Daniel Jones, they scored 41 last week. Daniel Jones has been lighting it up, before he got injured and obviously coming back last week. If Lane Johnson comes back.
Well, are you going to go out and play receiver? Because now Ertz is injured.
I bet you he can get me 8 for 100 yards somehow. The quarterback will get me to play well. I think Greg Ward is starting to come, show himself a little bit. Dallas Goedert is playing well. Zach Ertz, I don't see any way Zach Ertz doesn't play this football game. I don't know him. I just know
the broken rib.
I think he'll play. He will find a way that Zach Ertz. He broke it in the first quarter. Right. Within 5 minutes, he found a way to play that football game. Zach Ertz is going to play.
Lord, he's nervous.
I know.
I real nervous. A little bit.
Here's the thing.
A little bit.
If the Eagles don't win, it will. Obviously the game has yet to be played, but I wouldn't expect it to be because of the quarterback. The quarterback. Right. I think he proved everything he needed to prove Sunday at home. All of the garbage bag stuff. All of that is justified. Sure. I guess if he goes out and plays terribly on Sunday, it would undo some of that. But the reality is, they're a shell of a football team. The Eagles have no one left on offense. The ultimate irony. Now Ertz goes down. They have nobody left.
But at least they know that. I know that. But they haven't had anybody for 6 weeks, and they found ways. And so they got to find a way. One more week. I believe Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz will get it done.
I like the smile on the face of Damian Woody, and I need to look into whether or not I can trademark Danny Dollars. In the meantime, let's talk about the team that might still edge them out.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions coming out of Dallas after the Cowboys' tough loss to those Eagles this Sunday is the future of head coach Jason Garrett. And despite the loss, the Cowboys, as we've just said, could still win the division with a win over the Redskins, paired with an Eagles loss to the Giants. So let's get more on everything going on in Dallas. Welcoming in our NFL insider, Dan Graziano. And Dan, what are you hearing about the future of Jason Garrett in Dallas?
Yeah, first, I just want to say, you could tell Orlovsky the Eagles are only using 10 guys this week, and he would still tell you why they're going to win the game. Point's been more over-celebrated on a Monday morning. However, when we talk about the Cowboys, it's the same as it's been all year. Before the season started, Jason Garrett had to make a deep playoff run in order to save his job. That's still true, and mathematically, it's still possible. So if they were to win and the Eagles were to lose Sunday, then obviously they're not going to get rid of Jason Garrett in a week where they're preparing to play a playoff game. If those things don't happen, I would think you would expect the Cowboys to make a change at head coach, possibly or as early as next week, moving out Garrett and starting to interview people. But it's amazing how consistent this story has been since August, and it's still where it stood back then, except their record is terrible.
Dan, if they make a change, the Cowboys, who would they go to?
Well, that's the thing. We've heard, Urban Meyer connected as a person of interest there and other places, and it's possible they would explore that. The college ranks include Matt Rule at Baylor, who's a guy that I think a number of teams are interested in talking to. You look around the landscape at the Mike McCarthy, Ron Rivera types who have some experience, could fit there. It's a unique job. Whoever goes there, and we've talked about this as well, has to understand what the landscape is, how Jerry Jones is going to be out talking on the radio all the time and talking to media after games. And, you're going to want to just be the coach and not have to necessarily have the personnel control some of these guys might want to have. So it'll be interesting to watch. It should be, like I said, a unique opening.
Thanks, Dan Graziano, for joining us, and also thanks for the Dan on Dan crime there.
Yeah, Graziano, I know where you live, so be very careful.
And quite near each other, actually, for that matter. All right, so he threw a bunch of names in there that I find really interesting, and the first one he said is Matt Rule. Now, Matt Rule is a guy who was up for some NFL coaching jobs a year ago. The Jets wouldn't let him pick his own staff. Otherwise, he would have been the head coach of the Jets now. He did a really good job at Baylor this year. And in a recent interview, I liked what he said. He was like, look, I don't rule things out. He's not one of these phonies. So Matt Rule becomes a pretty intriguing possibility along with Lincoln Riley and Urban Meyer. Of those three college guys, do you see one of those guys wanting that job?
I think Matt Rule would probably be the highest of the list of wanting it for themselves. I would actually say that Lincoln Riley still probably isn't really considering it as much as people want him to. I mean, everyone wants to put Lincoln Riley on the Cowboys, and he just doesn't seem to me like a guy that wants to do that. I think he enjoys the college game, and I think he's still chasing that elusive national championship, which seems to be incredibly difficult to get. And then Urban Meyer, to me, Greeny, is such a wild card. I don't think it's realistic right now. I just think Urban's kind of listening to some of this. And Dan, he has the flexibility to listen right now. He's not doing anything else except broadcasting. He's not actually coaching. But I do think Matt Rule might be legitimately interested, and I think his personality fits well in the NFL with NFL players.
Yeah, I've long said if I was going to make a call to a college coach, the first call would be to Matt Rule. I've said that for about 2 years now. The second call would be to Lincoln Riley. And I know that we want to peg Lincoln Riley in there, but there is also some reasons. I believe he's from that area in some way, grew up a huge Cowboys fan. And I do, chasing that national championship. How likely are you to go get it at Oklahoma with all the teams that you have to play in the college football playoff? And the fact that I think this has been his best coaching year. I think that he has shown to be more than just an offensive mind. He has shown to have adaptability. He has shown to be able to be flexible. He's shown incredible leadership to get this football team back to the college football playoff. Also different type of offenses. We saw one offense with Baker Mayfield. Then we saw another offense with Kyler Murray. And we've seen a totally different offense with Jalen Hurts. So there is the X's and O's mind there, as well as I do think that Lincoln Riley has taken a step forward in the ability to be the leader of an organization. And when your potential dream job presents itself, I think that's going to be very difficult to say no to.
Why do you think he would?
Well, I've been on the Matt Rule train. I was hyping Matt Rule for the Jets job, last year because the one thing about Matt Rule, he's a program builder. That's the one thing. He did it at Temple, turned him around quick, went to Baylor, had Baylor basically brought him from the brink of death to playing in the Big 12 championship game. So this guy knows how to build programs.
And a caveat with the Cowboys is, again, Dak Prescott has had his best year ever. And so if you decide to move on from Jason Garrett, do you keep Kellen Moore and John Kitna, who have had tremendous impact on Dak Prescott? Like, how does it all work out? Because the head coach you hired, does he want to keep those two guys to run his